Mr. Spires, let me take this, give you an opportunity. If you were still in the former capacity at this agency instead of the IRS or the Homeland Security,
sure.
Let me first start with a broader question. Based upon your understanding of the facts involved here and your best judgment, was the breach or breaches that have occurred at OPM, were they predictable based upon what we knew looking at for example, the OIG report? If you saw those reports, is this an outcome that could be expected?
I think it is an outcome that could be expected, sir.
And do you have a sense, based upon either Ms. Archuleta's testimony or your independent knowledge and what you've heard of Mr. Esser and their reports, that would you say that the OPM officials have taken significant steps to solve their problems?
It does sound like they're doing a number of the things correctly. I think the centralization of IT is a very good step. They're talking about a modernization program that would upgrade their IT infrastructure. That being said, I'm going to go back to my earlier point that if I had walked in there as the CIO, and again, I'm speculating a bit, and I saw the kinds of lack of protections on very sensitive data, the first thing we would have been working on is how do we protect that data, okay? Not even talking about necessarily the systems. How is it we get better protections and then control access to that data better? And I think that is probably where the focus needs to perhaps even shift here, based on what I'm hearing.
Meaning that there's a priority. That ought to be the priority first effort,
yes.
Okay? Ms. Archuleta, does anyone at OPM take personal responsibility for these breaches, or is this just considered a problem with the system? Is this a problem with individuals not performing their duties, or it's just more that this is the system we inherited, we're working on it, and no one in particular is responsible for the outcome?
Well, I think Mr. Esser and Mr. Spires have said it very correctly. This is decades of lack of investment in the systems that we inherited when I came in. And from the very beginning of my tenure, I've been focused on this, and we are working to install not only the architectural strategies, but also to install the detection systems and be able to remediate. But as both of my colleagues have mentioned, we have legacy systems that are very old, and oftentimes we have to test to be sure we can even add those systems, those protection systems, into the legacy system. So those tools into the legacy system. If there's anyone to blame, it is the perpetrators.
So to date, you don't consider anyone at OPM, any of your staff or employees or people responsible for IT and its security to be personally responsible. It's simply it's a problem with the system that has been inherited.
This is an enterprise-wide problem, and cybersecurity is a responsibility of all of us who had organizations. And that is why, with Tony Scott's assistance and with his efforts, we're going to address this as an enterprise-wide basis as well as OPM individually.
So no one is personally responsible?
I don't believe anyone is personally responsible. I believe that we're working as hard as we can to protect the data of our employees, because that's the most important thing that we can do.
Mr. Spires, based upon what you've heard today, your knowledge just generally of government agencies and their cybersecurity issues, is this a management issue or is this a resource issue?
It's more of a management issue, sir.
And why do you say that?
Because of the dispersed nature of the way IT has been run in a lot of agencies. There are so many, let's say, inefficiencies that have been crept into the system that I don't believe we effectively spend the IT dollars that we receive. Now, so I believe that with a proper drive towards management, you can actually drive a lot of savings from the existing budgets. But caveat that, when you're talking about new modernization programs, sometimes with the right business case, it does make sense to invest in those.
I assume, based on your response to Senator Coons, I assume there's a natural inclination when these issues arise, that the easy thing to do is to hire a contractor. We don't know, within the agency, we don't know this stuff. This isn't our primary mission. Let's just get somebody in here who takes care of this. And we've worked on this committee. When Chairman Udall was its chairman, when Senator Udall was its chairman, we worked on FTARA and issues related to how do we improve the role CIOs play
Yes.
in an agency.
Yes.
In part trying to compensate for, I think, an attitude that we're not tech folks, somebody else is responsible for that. The breach, the first breach I think that you were aware of goes back to June of 2014. As I recall, you and others testified in front of this committee in May of 2014, and the following month, June, OPM became aware of a breach. Is that?
Yes, let me just, the first breach that we discussed with you was,
I don't think you discussed this within May, because I don't think, if you knew about it,
I'm sorry.
I don't think we knew about it.
Okay, I'm sorry, sir.
So it's probably better that,
Let me start. I want to look at make sure I have my months right. On March of 2014 was when we identified some adversarial activity, but there was no PII that was lost in that. In June of 2014, which was what you may be referring to, is when USIS was breached, and that there was OPM data that was compromised that impacted about 2.6 individuals, 2.6 thousand individuals. In August of 2014, the Keypoint Government Solutions, which I described earlier, their adversarial activity, they were breached, and that breach compromised approximately 49,000 individuals. And then in April of 2015 was the breach that I've described earlier, as well as the one in May.
so there were, make sure I understood what you just said, there were 3 breaches that occurred prior to the 2 we're now talking about.
There was the OPM network in March, June of 2014, USIS in August, Keypoint.
Obviously, you then became aware on 3 occasions somebody's trying to intrude on our system. So your point is, from not necessarily following the 3 breaches that we just talked about, but from your arrival, your priority was to get a CIO and begin implementation of a plan?
I will tell you, Senator, that from the first time I was briefed on our IT infrastructure during my confirmation preparation, I knew that there was a problem. And that is why in my confirmation hearing, I said it would be a top priority, and I promised your colleagues that I would develop an IT strategic plan, which I did and produced within the first 100 days. I was also wise enough to hire Donna Seymour.